Greetings and welcome to the channel. Now today we're going to talk about Viking clothing and what you need to dress as a Norse warrior. So in this video I'm going to be dressing as a Viking, a Norse warrior. What is the first thing I always put on? Well, if I'm not wearing already a Thor's hammer, then that is the first thing I put on. And here we have two silver Thor's hammers. So let's put these on. And of course, not many Vikings would wear a Thor's hammer. If you was married in the medieval times, you're more likely to hand it to your wife. Because as a warrior, as a wealthy person, you like to give your wealth to your wife, your wife in Saxon. So that's the first thing I always put on. And I'm wearing two. It shows off my wealth and status as a Viking. So the next item of clothing I will put on is an under tunic or under skirtle. This is a fine linen one. In fact, the very first one I bought back in 1999, and I'm sure you agree, for 25 years old it's doing quite well. It's also got a bit of wealth, it's got some tablet weave and a little bit of embroidery. So that's the next thing you'd wear as a Norse or even an Anglo-Saxon warrior. So the next thing I put on are my woolen trousers. I've had these for 25 years as well. Well, they're getting a little bit holdy in places. I need a little bit of work to keep them going for another 5 to 10 years. But my number one tip for wearing trousers is to have a separate bolt. Now on these trousers, I have a cord which I tighten up and tighten a bow. And this will keep your trousers up. Very important, as I'm doing now. But my number one tip is to get a separate bolt and put a bolt around your trousers, because the last thing you want when you're entering the battle is for your Anglo-Saxon trousers, your breeches, to fall down or become loose. Of course, you could also hang a pouch from this bolt if you want to have a secret pouch with your car keys in, of course, or anything modern, even your phone. I don't know why you're taking a phone into battle. So I'm going to do these up. There we go. And again, you get the leather bit and you tuck it round the back, and then I will feed it through and make it tight. Now my trousers will never fall down in battle, and I feel really secure. Very important, that is. So you now got your under tunic on, you got your trousers, and I've also donned some Viking turn shoes. Shoes are very important, and I can't stress enough that spending good money on a good pair of shoes will make life so much easier as a Viking reenactor. So the next bit of kit I have is a tunic. This one's inside out, so let's put it out the right way. This is made from wool, and they say that in an average tunic there's about 13 miles of thread. And I also have a little brooch of a bird for decoration. So let's put this on. So there you go. So I'm now wearing my over tunic or over skirtle. Of course, skirtle is where we get the word shirt and skirt from. And again, I can't stress enough, buying quality kit and making it feel comfy on your body is so important as a Norse warrior and as a reenactor. You will thank me for that tip later on. So there we go with this. So the next two items I've got are hats. Now you have a choice. You could have a woolen hat, and this is a hat in the style of the Burka hat that I found many years ago, and I must say it is a very nice hat to wear and it feels really comfy on your head, and I have a nice brooch on it to show my wealth and status. And of course on one of these hats you do need a brooch, or you could have a pin. Either way, it's a great option. But if you can't afford a helmet, then you could wear a leather skull cap. This is Eggle's leather hat, and this will give you some protection in battle if you don't have a helmet. So either of those two options are quite useful. This is made from quarter panels of leather with a bit of bear skin or some kind of fur on the outside. So either of those two options are very important. And then your next piece of kit will be your boat rig. So here we have the boat rig of Anglo-Saxons, and I must say it's one of the best boat rigs I've ever used and worn, and that's mainly because it's wide. I don't like a narrow boat, it digs into you, so definitely having a nice wide boat rig is essential. So I'm now going to put this boat on. It needs a little bit of cleaning up as it's got a little bit mouldy over winter. Stuff does, so you always have to keep an eye on your kit throughout the season and throughout the off season to make sure that it stays clean. So again, I'm going to feed the boat through with the strap end, and the strap end is this little bit of metal here, adds a little bit of weight to your boat, and is also about decoration and about showing off your status. And of course these can be made from silver, bronze, brass, bone, and if you're really lucky, gold. So there we have a boat rig. I've got a number of pouches. I've got a sea axe, a blunt one, and round the back I have Eggle sharp sea axe. That's for eating my dinner. And of course I'm going to pull that round, make sure that's in a good place, make sure that my pouches are at the front or on the side. I'm going to put this pouch through there. You don't want your pouches on the back if you can help it, so on the side is quite useful. So that's the next bit of kit, and for this purpose of this video I'm going to wear the woolen hat because it feels a bit more comfy on my head. So the next piece of Viking and Norse kit, but also ideal for the Anglo-Saxons, is a shoulder bag. I find it quite essential to have a shoulder bag so you can carry a few extra items like your bowl, maybe a cup, maybe a spare brooch or a spare sea axe, because you never know when you're going to need these things. And this one I made over 25 years ago, and it's done me well. It is based on a Frankish design, but you also see these in the Sutton Hoo burials as well, and this is quite a basic one. It could do with a bit of finishing off, but I like the way it is, and it has a couple of beads to fasten it off. And again, a bead is classed as a precious jewel and would be round about a week's wages. Back in those days, a lot of coin. Now the next item I will put on is a sword. I'm a high class warrior. I can afford such luxury things as a sword. So this is definitely the next item I would wear. This as a baldric, which I think is the best method for holding and carrying a sword, because it's not going to drag your boat down, and it does have the option for putting it on your boat as well if need be. Now sometimes I like to put this behind my boat so it's tucked in, but in other days I don't. So in this case I'm just going to loosely plonk it round there, feed it round the back of my leather sack, and that is the sword. And of course the sword is also a symbol of your wealth and status, because very few Saxons and very few Vikings would own one. They cost a lot of money. They are the equivalent of your longhouse on your land. And let's face it, if you're wealthy and you've got a bit of coin, you're going to buy land over a sword, because that gives you more status, and from that land you can grow more wealth. Unless you're choosing to be a professional soldier, a professional warrior, then you may decide to spend your coin on a sword and get paid for doing that job, but you may not own land. So the next item of clothing I'm going to put on is a cloak. Now depending on the weather, if it's winter you definitely want a good thick cloak, because it also doubles up as a blanket if you happen to sleep by a fire at night if you're on the march, and very essential. And again, this is a woolen cloak It's purple, so it's an extremely rich colour, the colour of kings and the priests and bishops. Very high status, and has a very nice linen backing striped. So let's put this on without disturbing my hat. And again, I've got a nice bronze, plain but simple brooch, a penannular, so it's got a split in it. And you can tie it behind your bolt system if you wanted it to be not so loose, but I don't always choose that method. And you can tuck it behind you, and of course if you're cold you can wrap yourself in it and around it to keep yourself warm. But if it's summertime like it is now, you may choose to go for a lighter cloak. This has 2 layers of wool, whereas choosing a cloak with 1 layer of wool will be, well, not so hot on the march. So that's the next item, and I'm sure you agree. And I turn around, I look pretty damn cool. So the next item I have is a hood. Hoods are very useful, but not everybody likes a hood, and there's some debate whether they had hoods. I believe they did. So let's put this hood on. You can have it either behind your cloak or above your cloak, and that gives you protection in the wind when you're marching. And another thing you can do, you can roll this back to reveal your head more and give you more peripheral vision. And if it's cold, you can wrap it back up and tighten it up, so to give yourself some protection at night. And of course, if you're not wearing it, you can put it in your leather shoulder bag. So the cloak, a very useful and wonderful thing. And of course, you may choose to wear your hat with a hood, and you can also have the hood down as well to give you some more protection in the wind and the elements. But let's demonstrate with putting a hat on as I sort my hair out and then putting the hood up. And there are some excellent videos about hoods out there, especially from the guy from Modern History TV. And it's not easy to put a hood on when you got a hat on. In fact, in this hood it's quite tight, it's pretty impossible. So in this case I'm just going to have it loose over my shoulders to give my neck some protection. And of course, one thing you want to do also is get out your Thor's hammers and make sure they're on display, because that can be the difference when you meet some warriors on a path. You don't know whether they're Saxon or Viking. Of course, a Viking would see this and say, oh, he's one of us. And a Saxon would say, oh, he's one of the enemies. Let's just take him down and take his goods. So, and of course, if you're going to lands, you know, the Christian lands, you may put away your Thor's hammer and get out a cross instead, which makes you look more friendly, especially if you're trading as a Viking. A lot of the Vikings and the Norse traded because it was a good source of money, and they had goods to sell, and they also wanted to buy goods and bring them back to Scandinavia. So that is the next option. And finally, we have an axe, because I think it's always essential to carry an axe, because not only is it a great weapon for combat and a backup weapon, a spare sidearm, it is also a very good tool. You could make a fire with it, make shelter. You can't really do that with your sword, but you can with an axe. I then have a javelin, which I will throw as I head towards battle to try to take a warrior out, either throw it over their shield wall or not. And then finally, because I'm wealthy, I have a shield. Viking! So there you go, Viking clothing and a basic guide. So there you go, Viking clothing and a basic guide to anybody who's getting into reenactment, or what you need to look out for and buy. And of course, a lot of this kit you can also make yourself. It's not difficult to make a pair of trousers. Cloaks are one of the most easiest things to make after a hat. Hats are so easy to make, you can knock one out in an hour. A cloak is probably a 3 to 4 hour project, and I do recommend having a double line cloak because that's even easier to make. And of course, when you get wealthy, you can have a sword. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you find it both to be entertaining and also to be informative, which is what we aim to be on the channel. We aim to educate in a fun way, in a real way, in a down-to-earth way. And if you like this video, then give me a subscribe. Hail the gods. Hail to our former late host, Egil Thorson. I'm sure he's looking down today from Valhalla and is having a big smile on his face, seeing the channel still growing. And until we meet again at Northworthy Sagas and Stories, I bid you farewell. Goodbye.